Hello everyone and welcome to today's episode of the Osasu Show. Today we discuss quite a sobering story. On Tuesday, August 7th, 2018, the National Assembly was besieged by the Department of State Security. They prevented lawmakers from carrying out their parliamentary duties by playing partisan politics. In line with this, the Vice President, who is now the acting President, Professor Yemi Osibanjo, sacked the DG of SSS after the siege occurred. He claimed that this was undemocratic, unconstitutional, and will not be tolerated in this administration. Another angle to the story, though, is the continuous detention of Nigerians by the DSS. Many Nigerians are detained illegally in the Department of State Security without trial. One of such Nigerians is Mr. Jones Abiri, a journalist from Bayelsa State. Mr. Jones Abiri has been detained for 2 years with no access to his family and the public. On today's program, we speak to the journalist who unraveled this issue, as well as another victim of this DSS illegal detention. Later on in the program, we hear from his family. They tell us how they've been faring so far in the past 2 years. They've finally been able to make contact with him 2 years after, and they'll tell us what this experience was like for them. Don't go anywhere, and we'll be right back on the Osasu Show. Welcome back to the Osasu Show. Joining me now to my immediate right is Mr. Peter Mekanga, who is an investigative journalist. To his right is Mojirayo Mekanga, who is the legal representative to Mr. Jones Abiri. And to her right is Comrade Ezekiel Daniel, who is a victim of the DSS brutality and illegal detainment. Gentlemen and women, thank you so much for joining me on today's program.
Thank you, madam.
So I'll start with you, Mr. Peter. Can you walk us through how you were able to investigate and unravel this detainment, illegal detainment of Mr. Jones Abiri since 2016?
Thank you, first of all, for having me and my colleagues. It started on the 21st of July 2016. When I used to work with an organization based in New York, and we monitor press freedom around the world. And I got a report that a journalist had been abducted. And it seemed strange, but when I looked into the context of what was happening within that period of the abduction, I started to understand that there was a lot more to the allegations that the SSS eventually gave out, which was that Jones Abiri was a militant, or is a militant that is still claimed. So what I started doing was to start asking questions. What exactly could be the reason why Jones Abiri could have been abducted? Why would the SSS, Nigeria's foremost security agency, that the Nigerian Secret Police, would arrest a journalist and now tag him as a militant? And for me, it came down to what exactly had he done in the past few days, weeks, months prior to the arrest. And I stumbled upon his article, the last edition of his publication, which was dated 10th of July 2016, basically 11 days before his abduction. Well, was very critical of not only the federal government, but also of the state government. So that also was really a pointer that probably Mr. Jones Abiri was being persecuted, victimized.
If Mr. Jones Abiri was not providing the public with any new information that had not been out there before, why do you believe he was the target of this DSS detainment?
One of that, like I said, there are several other stories that were published in the newspaper.
Original to Jones Abiri.
One of them, particularly, which was the headline of the story, was original to Jones Abiri. He was investigating the Bayelsa State Oil Company, which had granted its headquarters in Lagos State and was paying huge taxes to the Lagos State government, among several things. That was the headline of the newspaper. So that was a critical story. And at the end of that story, which was the front page, he had written to be continued in the next edition, which never came out.
Let's move on to Mrs. Moji Rayo. You're one of his legal representatives. What is his standing in court right now? What is the court saying regarding Mr. Jones Abiri's case?
Okay, I won't really be able to go into the nitty-gritty of the case because it's sub judice, it's still in court. But I can tell you that we were able to get a good condition for his bail. And prior to that, there had been a stringent condition. But when we went to court today, the court had our application to vary the conditions, and it has made it less stringent. And so we are working on getting him on bail. But if you want to look at the legal issues involved, there are several legal issues involved in this matter. And one of them is very obvious. It's unconstitutional to detain someone for 2 years without access to family, without access to his legal counsel, without access to medicals. And in fact, without a trace. Jones Abiri's case was without a trace, and this is clearly unconstitutional.
But you're just saying that the court is now granting him bail.
A bail, right? Yes, because it was charged by the SSS to the magistrate court. And their claim is that he had been sending text messages to 2 oil companies. I'm not going to disclose their names. That those companies, and he has been asking for money and threatening them that if they don't pay, they are going to bomb their facilities. And so that is the only charge that they have on his neck, according to what is before the magistrate court. But I can tell you that prior to that, there had been a suit at the Bayelsa High Court where they had been claiming something else. So
I'm trying to deconstruct and understand what necessarily the illegality of his detainment is. Because as you said, they've charged him to court, right?
Just recently.
They've just recently charged him to court after his detainment for the past 2 years. So now the court has granted him bail. So if he's able to meet up to these bail conditions, he will be released?
Yes, he will be released on bail.
Okay, so your issue now with the Department of State Security is the fact that they held him for those 2 years.
2 years.
Without charging him to the proper
yes,
court.
And the allegations are unfounded.
But that is your perspective.
That is my perspective.
Exactly. So the DSS can argue, can give a counter perspective.
If they can present their proof of evidence, we'll be glad to see.
We've seen a lot of social media backlash regarding the detainment of Mr. Jones Abiri. I want to bring you in, Mr. Comrade Ezekiel. You were one of the people who were actually in detention with Mr. Jones Abiri. Can you talk to me about your experience?
Yeah, thanks so much for having me on your program. I think I'm still looking at the lexicon I'm going to use in describing my experience. But in a nutshell, it's hell on earth. When this government came on board, there is a school known as Maritime University. I'm sure you must have heard about it. Okrenkoko in Baramatu, Delta State. Without no justification, President Muhammadu Buhari revoked that project. And being that some of us, we are the mouthpiece of our people, using advocacy, I came on air that no, it's not done. It's our money that is being used to run the economy of Nigerian state. Now, how do you suddenly wake up and revoke this project? If you have any issue with it, follow due process. Because of that, a man known as Michael Johnny, from that same axis, who is a member of APC, felt that sending some of us to detention is a way of showing loyalty to his party. Petition Nigerian government that myself, I was a militant, I was the spokesperson of Avengers, that I should be arrested. True to type, on 3rd of August, I was kidnapped in a mafia soul form, brought down to DSS, where I was kept in hell on earth condition. And while I was there, Amnesty International, my organization, civil society bodies across the world mounted pressure that they know me. I've never been a militant. I'm an activist.
Do you have any relations to the Niger Delta Avengers?
Not at all. I've never been a militant. I don't know how to carry gun. My pen.
Have you ever spoken out for them?
For Avengers?
Yes.
No. I've always...
But you've spoken out against the unrest of the maltreatment and segregation of the Niger Delta?
Yes. Yes,
okay.
People. I've been doing that. Even when former President Goodluck, who happens to be son of the soil, quote and unquote, we criticize some of his policies that does not augur well with our people. So, and when this government came on board, we made it known that that university, we will not allow you to kill that university.
Walk me through the incidences that happened after your detention, after you claimed to have been abducted in a mafia juxtaposed style by the DSS. Yes. What then occurred?
While I was there, they now set up the committee. At the end of the day, the committee found out that what they did, or the petitions that was sent to DSS and other paramilitary, that it was just a fallacious thing. So on the 25th of November last year, they now set me free unconditionally. But in as much as since they set me free, I have now joined forces.
Did you have relationship? Did you come in contact with Mr. Jones Abiri while you were in detention?
Of course. Not only I'm happy for this question that you've asked, as I'm talking to you, 50 Niger Delta youths are in detention. We are just using Jones Abiri, quote and unquote, as the catchphrase to get both local and international attention for our other youths who are in detention. I am Jones Abiri, Sensor Luba. So many of them, we were all in the same facilities, but I left the place due to international pressure before them. But as I'm talking to you, for more than 2 years, 50 Niger Delta youths are in DSS custody. None of them has been taken to court. And I've not come across it in Nigerian law or any part of our law that empowers DSS to lock up innocent Nigerians for 2 years without taking them to court.
Give us an insight. How were you treated when you were in detention, and how were the other 50 Niger Delta youth that you claim to be in detention? How are they also treated?
Yes, I said it earlier on, that experience, I will not even wish my enemy, because the treatment that we were given, it was hell on earth. So how else am I going to describe it when I said, I just paraphrase that it's hell on earth? You know what that means? When I say something is hell on earth, is despicable, is unexplicable.
Sorry about that. I know it's a very difficult conversation to have, and it's definitely a difficult memory for you to sort of recall. So we apologize for provoking those emotions, but it's highly necessary for Nigerians and the international community watching to see and hear what is going on in our country. Because as you said, there is absolutely no reason why an individual should be held without bail for 2 years, not tried to court. It's against the law, and it's against his and her human rights. So I thank you for sharing your experience. And Mr. Peter, we're going to round off with you. What are you calling on the federal government to do at this very moment? Because as Senior Comrade Ezekiel Daniel has said, the government has flouted the Constitution. The government has flouted the laws. So what are you calling on them to do at this very point? And what are you calling on the international community and all lovers of democracy to do to free not only Mr. Jones Abiri, but the 50 other Niger Delta youths that you claim are in detention, and many people, I'm sure, from across the 6 geopolitical zones who are also affected?
I think Mr. Daniel didn't really tell you what he should have said in terms of what is going on there. My investigation has been able to reveal apart from the enforced disappearance of like the 50, and like Jones was in this case and others that are there across Nigeria, we have people from iPod members who are locked up in SSS custody, we have Boko Haram suspects who are locked up there for years, we have people from across the country. Now, what is going on when they are there? So when you ask yourself, what goes on within those 2 years or the number of years they are there? Torture. It is plain black torture. Torture, what kind of torture? You have beatings, you have electrocution, you have where they take radiation and use it and bring it close to your testicles so that you feel the heat, and it, all in a bit to get you to confess. Like, he has not said it, but I will say that he is here to deny it. They were torturing him so that he can confess to statements that he was a United Delta Avenger member. The same thing for several others that we've been able to now see who are coming out in trickles. I met the second person that was charged to court with Jones Abiri. I have a video of him. He said he was stabbed, he showed me his leg and his whole body, stabbed with a knife because we wanted to confess to allegations. And now what are we asking for to answer a question that there are several things, but one of the key things is rule of law should be obeyed. And how can you start asking an institution to abide by the rule of law when it's accountable? The SSS for over 3 years has not had a spokesperson. So you can imagine Joseph Abiri's family for 2 years not having access to their husband, their father, their brother for 2 years, and the institution that is holding him, you cannot even go there to say, okay, what is the latest with him? There is not even one spokesperson. You ask yourself, but the military have spokespeople, have spokespersons on different, whether the Army, Navy, or Air Force, or the defense. The police has, the customs has, the security agencies have. If you take it to other crimes in the world, you still have a way of getting interrogated by the FBI, the CIA. Even in those crimes, there is still legislative oversight. In Nigeria, there is nothing like legislative oversight over the SSS. And we can see they don't even obey court orders. They have flagrantly disobeyed court orders. We have the Dasukis, we have the Zazaki, we have several of the data that also had bails granted, but they denied them. Even Jones' case, Jones was given a bail on July 27 when he was first charged to court. The prison officers waited to receive him. SSS whisked him away. It was only on August 2nd when he was brought again that the media stood their ground and said, we want to see where he's going to go to this time around.
What is the solution? What's the way forward?
The solution is one. First of all, let us start having this conversation, which we're having, and let us start bringing out the names of these people. Let SSS now be accountable and tell us, okay, these people that have been identified, tell us what is at stake, like they've done for Jones and Abiri. That's one. Two, let the SSS at least, the barest minimum, have a spokesperson that can interface with the public and also answer to media requests. There is no journalist right now that covers the defense beat that can tell you that the supposed spokesperson called Tony Okuyo is actually a verifiable, identifiable, real person. It's a fictitious name. I can say that, I've said that, and I can say that Tony Okuyo doesn't exist. It's just a fictitious like how we had Obama of those days. That's two. Then three, we need to start having reforms, like we're asking for NSAS. The SSS, there needs to be reforms to the SSS. And we're praying that with this whole new era that the Vice President, acting President has done with the sacking of Laura, is to bring about a reform. And what kind of reform? One, let there at least be some level of oversight, legislative oversight, so that we can start asking questions to the SSS and the answer. Those are three things that I think are key that we should start doing about the SSS.
Speak out, SSS get a spokesperson, and reform of the Department of State Security. Final words, Senior Comrade Ezekiel Daniel.
There is no way you will be talking about outsiders without addressing the issue from your backyard. What am I saying? Governor Siraki Dixon claims to be Governor General of Ijaw Nation. He moves about in a swagalicious form with his walking stick. Papa Ike Clark is there. There is a body known as Pandev that was set up during the crisis of this Avenger. The aims and objective, fundamental aims and objective of Pandev is to fight for the freedom of Niger Delta youth who were in detention. Nobody amongst them is talking about it. So I found it so ridiculous. That's why I will not lay more emphasis on my blame on Nigerian state. Because if our so-called leaders could abandon their children, what do you expect from outsiders? So mine is that our leaders, I'm talking about our so-called leaders, they should sit tight and frontally demand for the freedom of their children.
That's a fine place to leave it. Gentlemen, gentle lady, thank you so much for joining us in today's program. After this short break, we'll bring you some interviews and highlights of the feedback of the family of Mr. Jones Abiri, who will speak to us about how his illegal detention has affected their lives. Don't go anywhere, and we'll be right back on The Osasu Show.
It was actually shocking when we heard in the news one cold evening that Chief Jones Abiri has been arrested, and the DSS came up with charges, very heavy charges, treasonable charges, and that actually threw off his whole community members, his family members, as something that is too heavy. And as a matter of fact, that was one of the main reasons, apart from people not being able to trace him outside Bayelsa. People, concerned family members, were even afraid to approach the DSS office in Yenegua. It was a very big blow to the media family in Bayelsa, to his community, Ukwotuare, Ondeware, and Umbugbini communities. Incidentally, I have worked very closely with him because as an environmentalist, when we write our reports from time to time, he asks for the field reports. And there were instances where he published center page, go to the next page, and like that, publishing our field reports. And he was so interested about anything environment. And that was why when this thing happened, besides being my brother-in-law, because I married to one of his cousins, I took it upon myself as any other human rights issue, which I have been doing in the Niger Delta for quite some time. So, since he was denied appearance today on very good reasons, we had to go to the prisons in Kefi, and we saw him one-on-one. I was privileged to go in first, in the first batch, with the wife. Incidentally, he's a man, he's a human. He broke down when he saw the wife. Actually, when they were about shaking hands. And you just have to encourage him that the battle, your persecution is coming to an end. So be strong. So that is the journey so far, and then we are happy. We have to thank the media, both internationally, locally, and all those who have contributed towards this. Thank you. What has happened these past 2 years is not pleasing to her. She's not comfortable with it. When she heard she was not in town, when she came, she heard that her husband has been arrested. And she said, why? My husband is a journalist. What crime has he committed to be arrested? So she has not been happy since then. The tail end, seeing him today, so delighted, so happy. I've not eaten since today, and I say I won't eat until I see him. And now that I've seen him live, my mind is really joyous. So I'm really happy, and then say God has done it for us.
It's been a active battle since when my father was not around and being in DSS detention, and the family and I always would encourage my mom, you shouldn't be worrying about too much of him because he's a good person in the society.
As you can see, quite a sobering issue. Nigerians, it's time to wake up. It's time to speak out. It is time to fight for the sustenance of our democracy. Our forefathers have fought way too hard and way too long to achieve the democracy and freedom of speech that we have today. It is time to hold our leaders account, irrespective of partisanship. It is time to take a stand and put Nigeria first. Follow this story on our page at The Osasu Show, at TOS TV Network, at Osasu Igbenedion, on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. I'll see you same time, same place next week, and until then, take very good care of yourself and stay safe.